Welcome back, storytellers. Today we're stepping into a tale that begins with a simple purchase, a piece of land bought on a whim, a gamble fueled by curiosity and hope. But what starts as an ordinary adventure quickly unravels into something far more extraordinary. Brothers Henry and Tom had no idea that their newly acquired property would lead them down a path filled with mystery, history, and unexpected treasures. So settle in, because this is a story about discovery, of land, of secrets, and of connections that span generations. Let's dive in. Brothers Henry and Tom were on their way to their newly purchased piece of land. It was a thrilling drive, and both brothers couldn't wait to see what their investment had brought them. They got the place for basically nothing at an online auction, so maybe it was a bust, but still, the excitement was high. They arrived at the gate and took the first steps on their new property. Not much later, the terrain was rough, and Tom immediately saw that it needed much work. But then they noticed something they didn't expect to see. A structure stood in the middle of the land, a building they did not see on the map they received after the purchase. It looked like an old rusty shed. It had seen better days, but it piqued their interest, so the brothers carefully approached the structure. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for more amazing stories. Henry walked around the worn-down building while Tom yanked at the two large doors in the front. "So, do you see another way in because these main doors are locked tightly?" Tom asked his brother. Henry walked around the corner and shook his head. This was the only way in. They looked at the heavy chain lock connecting the two doors together. "What now?" Tom asked. But Henry knew just how to solve this problem. They were going to break the lock open. Henry looked around for something that could help them and quickly found the solution to their problem. A steel pipe stuck out between some rubble, so he picked it up and shoved it between the lock's chains. Tom took a few steps back, wondering what his brother was planning. Henry twisted the pipe around several times and then pulled as hard as possible. The pipe created a lever that would be strong enough to break the chain, and it worked. Because after a couple of tries, they heard the sweet sound of a chain bursting. The air inside was warm and humid, and it was too dark to see anything properly. So Henry and Tom used their flashlights to look around. It became clear that this shed had not seen the light of day in many years. The empty cabinets were full of mold, had formed, and vegetation had overgrown most of the shed's innards. But there was something in the back that piqued their interest. In the right corner of the worn-down building, there were multiple large boxes, some with hanging locks just like the shed had but smaller, and some with no locks at all. The two brothers were fascinated. They felt like they were on some storage hunter TV show ready to find some treasure. Tom said, smiling as they lifted the boxes out into the open, their bodies filled with anticipation. What was inside? Once outside, it was time to unlock their exciting findings. The boxes were old, but the details on them were intricate and well kept. It made them look way too important to just be tossed out to rot in a shed, and their insides proved it. The boxes were filled with documents of complex-looking blueprints and pictures of a man and his family, which didn't just look old, they looked ancient. The people's clothing in the picture was clearly not from a modern era. They saw black and white photos of a man supporting a considerable mustache, a woman in a corset, and a little girl holding a creepy doll. When Tom removed all the files from the box, he even found what was left of the doll from the picture. "What is all this?" he said, staring at the doll. "These must have been the original owners of the land," Henry said in amazement. They took another good look at the stuff, eager to discover who these people were. And then, something on the blueprint caught Henry's attention. He saw what appeared to be the shed, but it seemed to be part of a much bigger house. But what really caught his attention was what was scribbled in the corner. The blueprint was filled with perfectly straight lines. The drawings were so detailed and precise that they must have taken months to create, but there was one detail that was free-flowing, a part that was clearly put on there as a finishing touch. It was the signature of the maker. The initials read, RS. They were encased in an upside-down triangle, and something about it felt really familiar to Henry. Tom showed his brother the signature, and he also recognized the marking. There was something about the upside-down triangle that took them down memory lane. The shed and these plans quickly became more important than the land they bought. The intriguing find and mysterious RC held their interest. They had to find out who it was, so the two brothers stepped into their car and drove to the first place they could think of. The local library was the first stop on their road to discovery. It held a vast collection of books about the history of this town, and the Wi-Fi was way better here than back at home. The two brothers split up tasks and searched for hours, but unfortunately, their efforts seemed futile because they didn't find anything about the mysterious RC. They needed to find another way to find out more. With no other option left, the brothers agreed they needed outside help. Maybe someone in this town knew more about RS and the land they had bought. So they decided to place an ad in the regional newspaper, asking for help in their search for the mysterious R. Then the wait began, and it was a long one. For almost 2 months, there was nothing but dead silence. But then one day early in the morning, the phone in Tom's house rang. It was 6:15 a.m., and it was still dark outside. Who called at this hour? Tom wondered, slightly irritated. He picked up the phone, and on the other end, a man answered. Tom was surprised to hear the man was a historian. The historian explained that he called because of the ad. "I am convinced I can help you," he said. Tom was speechless. He couldn't believe what he just heard. After 2 long months of waiting, they finally got a new lead about the mysterious RS person. "Let's go!" Henry shouted as he put on his coat. The two men got the car and drove to the historian's workplace. Once at the workshop of the historian, the two brothers were greeted by an elderly man. They did not waste any time and asked their most burning question. Who was RC? The old man told the brothers that the man they were looking for was named Robert Stevenson, the original owner of the land. "Stevenson, that is also our last name," Henry said, and all later they would find out that this was no coincidence. The historian told them that Robert Stevenson was the wealthiest man in town, maybe even the entire region, and that he lived back in the 19th century. But besides his birth year and status, little was known about him. That caused the historian to be so fascinated by RS, and that's why he spent years of his life studying the mysterious man, and they would soon find more intriguing things about him. The historian looked at the stuff the brothers brought with them and noticed there was a blueprint. He grabbed it and carefully looked at it. "I've got one of these as well," he said in a soft voice. Henry and Tom turned around and looked at the old man with big eyes. A second blueprint? What could be on there? Tons of questions plagued their minds. After scrambling around in his closet for a few minutes, the old man pulled out a large sheet of paper. The brothers waited in anticipation and soon saw it was a blueprint of their land with a layout of the house in the center of it. It even had the same initials, RS, at the bottom right corner, yet something was different. It was a perfect copy of theirs except for one detail. Henry was the first to spot the difference. "Don't you see it?" Henry asked while Tom and the historian still stared at the paper blindly. He grabbed the blueprint from the historian's hand and put one over the other. And as he held the stacked pieces of paper to the light, the others gasped. The historian's blueprint was missing a room. It was the exact spot where their shed stood. "Oh God, you are right," the historian said. He told the men that after Robert Stevenson's death, all traces of his life seemed to have vanished. His guess was that this secret room, which lay in the exact location of the shed, might have something to do with it. The brothers looked at each other with a hopeful look. Were they onto something? Tom and Henry quickly thanked the old man and told him they would keep in touch if they found something. Within minutes, both brothers were back in the car, on their way to the land and the shed they bought. The brothers were so excited, they ran back toward the shed, a building they now saw in a whole new light. What secrets did it hold? Tom and Henry stood in the center of the shed and looked around. They had searched this place before, and it didn't bear much fruit back then, but they knew more now. The brothers opened every cabinet and flipped every object upside down, but they found nothing. He was sure he heard a strange sound while walking. Henry moved a few steps and stomped again, repeating this process a few times. His actions caught the attention of Tom, who walked over, and then they both heard it. After moving a few times, the hollow sound was heard. They looked at each other. "I think there is a hollow space underneath here," said Henry eventually. Disbelief drenched his voice. With trembling hands, Henry and Tom reached for the handle of the old wooden hatch. They pulled the lever with huffing and puffing. They managed to get the hatch open. Below, a dark hole with a ladder was revealed. The first 3 steps were visible, but after that, it was nothing but darkness. "Hello! Is there anyone in there?" shouted Tom with a slight quiver in his voice. He wasn't expecting an answer, but still felt nervous. They heard his voice echo in the space below, indicating it was pretty big. This was that. Henry took the initiative and climbed down the first steps, which creaked dangerously, causing him to quickly descend further. "Okay, I'm down." Hopefully there was some kind of light source down here. The brothers started to search the room but didn't know what to look for exactly. They expected it to be some dirty, musky old basement filled with old junk, but instead they found themselves standing in a well-organized living room. They could see no one had been here in ages due to the layer of dust everywhere, but it still felt homey. There was a dresser, a small cabinet, and a coffee table in front of a couch filled with teacups and plates. But something else caught their attention. Next to all the plates and cutleries, there were multiple old pictures. Henry wiped the dust off the couch and sat down to take a look at them. Most of them were of a young girl, but then Henry's heart suddenly skipped a beat. "Look at this!" he exclaimed as he shoved a picture in Tom's face. Tom snatched it out of his brother's hands to take a better look. "This is him! It's Stevenson!" Slowly but surely the realization dawned on them. "This has to be the secret room the historian was talking about," Tom said enthusiastically. There was no other option. They went through the drawers of the small cabinet, moved the dresser, and looked beneath the couch. And both brothers eventually stared at the same point in the room. A large oil painting of Robert Stevenson and his family hung on the wall. It was beautifully painted and precisely the same as the picture. This was the first thing they found that led anywhere. It had to be a clue. Both men stepped closer to the painting. In the bottom right, the initials RS were scribbled. They were on the right track, but then Tom noticed something. Robert Stevenson did not only share their last names. Some of his features also pretty closely matched their own. The big round family nose and the birthmark on his forehead that many family members had. Could Robert Stevenson potentially be their ancestor? Where was this going? This painting was obviously the next clue. Then Henry thought of something. What better place to hide something than behind a painting? "There's something behind the frame," he suddenly muttered as he backed away. Their hearts raced as Tom reached his fingers around the edge, trying to pry the hidden object loose, but it wouldn't budge. Determined, Henry and Tom knew they were onto something. They carefully examined the frame, looking for any way to access the hidden object, but there didn't seem to be an easy way. The frame was firmly stuck to the painting. They knew this was their only chance to find out the secret, so the brothers agreed that desperate measures were acceptable. Henry took a deep breath and then broke the picture frame. It took quite a bit of effort to break the frame, but eventually he managed it. And when he did, a key fell onto the floor. It was pretty small and looked very old. "Where does this go?" Tom thought aloud. Due to the key, they missed the envelope, which also fell out of the frame. Henry quickly snatched it off the ground and opened it without hesitation. "This is amazing!" While Henry stared at the letter, Tom took a closer look at the envelope and noticed the upside-down triangle in the wax seal. They were surely on the right track. Henry then explained the letter, said that only the true heir of Robert Stevenson could find it, and that the person who found it was entitled to the family treasure. The brothers looked at each other in disbelief, Was this real? Where was the treasure? Tom and Henry read the letter again and again to find any hidden meaning, and their feeling was right because there was a clue in there. But what did it mean? Don't draw any conclusions. The treasure is kept safe. Only my true heir can find it, Henry murmured as he paced around the room. What could it mean? Then he suddenly stopped in his track. I got it, he shouted. Tom watched his brother hurry toward the cabinet and mumble softly. What are you doing? He asked, staring at his brother who was opening and closing drawers frantically. Henry didn't react and kept fidgeting with the drawers of the cabinet. He figured the clue meant the treasure was hidden with the drawers and their shared initials were the key. After Henry closed the last drawer, a loud click was heard. The click echoed through the room. Tom now joined Henry next to the cabinet. They were this close to finding a long-lost treasure. They could feel it. But what had opened? All the drawers in the cabinet could already be opened. Was there a secret one? The brothers quickly felt all around the cabinet, but there seemed to be no secret compartment. Then Tom noticed the cabinet was shaking lightly after every touch. Tom grabbed the whole cabinet and shook it vigorously. It became clear to both brothers that nothing inside the cabinet had opened, but the cabinet itself had opened. It also functioned as a door. Come here, help me, Tom ordered his brother, and they lifted one side of the cabinet to move it aside. The brothers' faces illuminated as they saw what was behind the cabinet. There was a chest with a lock on it. Look at that! Henry exclaimed as he patted Tom the shoulder. A mix of excitement and relief came over them. This had to be the treasure, right? What would be in it? The brothers quickly grabbed the chest and put it in the room. Tom took the key from the painting and put it in the lock. It fit. They opened the chest and found it filled with golden coins and old documents. Henry and Tom were overjoyed with their discovery. The chests of gold and ancient documents felt like a direct connection to their past. They questioned if they were the rightful owners, as the letter had said. Eager to learn more, they carefully packed the chest and its contents and drove to the historian. Their hearts were full of excitement, a sense of accomplishment, but also doubt. Would they be able to keep the treasure? The historian was astounded by their find. The old man immediately dove right into the old documents inside the chest. The documents provided invaluable information about Stevenson's life, work, and contributions to the town. They also confirmed that gold belonged to the brothers, as they were the direct descendants of Robert Stevenson. The historians couldn't believe what they had found and thanked them, but the brothers were still processing. They had just become rich. Henry and Tom felt they owed their ancestors something, but didn't know how to honor their legacy. But eventually they thought of the perfect way. They used the blueprints they had found to build a house on their land, replicating Stevenson's original design. It took them years to complete, and they even included the secret room. The brothers felt a strong connection between them and their ancestors, but the house wasn't all they did. Next to their new home, the brothers constructed a small museum. This museum housed all the antiques, documents, and the story of their incredible discovery. They invited the historian to manage the museum, and it became a place of learning and curiosity, attracting locals and tourists alike, eager to explore the rich history of Robert Stevenson and the area. The museum stood as a testament to their journey and the heritage they had uncovered. Years later, the brothers still lived on the property. They expanded it so their whole family could reside there. Looking back, buying the land changed the brothers' lives in ways they never imagined. It was not just a piece of property, but a doorway to their past and a bridge to their future. Thanks to their ancestors, the brothers could now provide for their family in ways they had never thought possible.